What's up, geeks and gamers? It's Jeremy, and I am joined by one of my favorite human beings on the planet, Kelly Jedi Bunny. Hi, Kelly.
Hey guys. Hey guys, how you all doing today?
Finally making your return. It has been way too long since we've had you here on the channel, and you and I finally caught up yesterday for the first time in forever, and we got to talking about this topic that a few people on the internet have been discussing, something called Game of Thrones. It's a very obscure show. I don't know if a lot of people are going to be able to watch this video because nobody knows about it, but so I learned that you and I you told me you've been watching some of my videos, and you're like, yeah, me and you are like totally on the same page, and I was like, wow, that doesn't shock me because you and I really are usually on the same page on a lot of things. And so we decided we're going to do a video together today to talk about it. But what the thing we're going to build this around for everybody watching is that, like here at Geeks and Gamers, a lot of the things we criticize is, the SJW politics in the entertainment industry and how that's bogging down and ruining a lot of shows. But really, there's nothing, in my opinion, and we'll get into, what Kelly thinks too, but like, I don't really see any SJW politics that are hurting the story. Now, if you want to nitpick that, like, oh, this is that there's some elements there, that's fine, but nothing is breaking the story from an SJW politics standpoint. It's more about just terrible writing, in my opinion. So we'll just go ahead and jump into it from there. So Kelly, you give us kind of your background on Game of Thrones and how you got into it, and then, work into is there any SJW politics ruining it?
Well, I want to start by saying I've recently become a huge fan of Game of Thrones, and I watched the original 4 seasons as they were coming out, but I remember stopping at about season 4 and just kind of taking a step back and being like, you know what, I grew up with Lord of the Rings, I love fantasy, I love the genre, but something just feels like it's starting to get a little soap opera-esque for me. But then, I saw how many fans were so involved in it, and I decided to give it another chance. I actually have a friend who's been pestering me to watch it. He's like, trust me, you will love it. You will love the depth of the characters. Everybody's dynamic. It's not good versus evil. And the writing really is, once I gave it another chance and I really allowed myself to get back into it and kind of watch the characters and the writing unfold, there really is a really subversive aspect in terms of the fantasy genre that attracted me to Game of Thrones. It wasn't your white knight and your dark evil lord. It was really, you had these complex characters with incredibly complex motivations and their egos getting involved and different philosophies from the different houses and everything. So it really got me through that depth of character and through the conflicted emotions and motivations that people felt and struggled with. And that's been my biggest problem with this new season, is the writing. I feel as though they've really written these characters into a corner where their motivations don't feel authentic to that actual person anymore. It feels entirely rushed and entirely sloppy. And it's really unfortunate because even though I wasn't necessarily an avid Game of Thrones fan from the very beginning, I kind of got back into it and kind of resurrected this part of me that really allowed it like back into my life more recently, and really got into it, really got into the extended world and the world building. And I was going down YouTube rabbit holes, watching background videos on all the different places geographically, and the politics and the history and the different species. And then season 8 happened. I mean, you could see as the seasons went along that, yeah, they were losing a little bit of their source material, and they really, they were kind of trying to create their own motivations and plot devices, and that's understandable. But season 8 is just like a drop off a cliff. And I was recently watching a video on a channel called Just Right, and I think he summed it up perfectly. He said it's like opening up the Ark of the Covenant and just seeing sand inside. And that's, to me, the perfect way of describing it, because if you've seen Raiders of the Lost Ark, you know that the whole film is based around the Nazis getting the Lost Ark of the Covenant in order to use its incredible powers that it's been told to have. And then they open it and there's only sand inside. And of course, no spoilers or anything, but
right.
It's more than just sand.
That's good. That's a great point. It's a great point.
It's great. And that's I can't take credit for that. That was his point, but that's exactly how I feel, is that we've opened up the Ark of the Covenant. We've been promised this depth and this diversity of character and this versatility of storyline. And instead what we've gotten is this like shabby, sloppy, rushed writing that just feels and there's so many excuses out there that I've seen. It's like, oh, budget constraints, time constraints, but I'm like, I think there's something else going on here. It just feels like somebody just kind of dropped the ball, like the biggest ball of all.
It is such a drastic drop in
Mm-hmm.
everything. And again, there's nothing wrong with, and we're not gonna. Honestly, I haven't even talked to you. I don't know if you know the spoilers for the final episode. Do you?
No, I
And we're
try
not going to
not
talk.
to.
Yeah, and we're not going to talk about that here. We're going to talk about everything leading up to this finale, because this was probably posted on Friday. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with Dany going Mad Queen in terms of storytelling, as long as you're willing to do what it takes to build the arc to get her to that point.
Yes.
I know there's foreshadowing. Oh, she said this in season 2. She said this. None of that matters. Like, her character has never shown the ability to murder women and children in the streets. Like, she will kill you if you cross her. She will kill you if you don't kneel to her. Like, she will kill you if you threaten her. But just murdering innocent women, like, and children and husbands and just people, like, after they've surrendered. I mean, Dany knows as a character, and she's very aware of King's Landing and what Cersei, the people of King's Landing were not dedicated to Cersei. They feared Cersei because that she would just kill them straight up. But there's so many problems, and we're not going to try to go down all of that, yada, yada, yada. But yes, you bring up the whole point we're trying to make is that, if everything is SJW, nothing is SJW. So I think it's very important to point out, this is not SJW. Like, putting women in prominent roles is not SJW. That's not how it works. The women in this series have been well developed up until season 8, but it's not even women. I mean, nobody's payoff has worked in season 8, but the women in this series have been well developed. We have reasons to care about them, to be invested in their arc. There are no Mary Sues in this series whatsoever. So season 8 is about the writing and the lack of respect for the journey that we've been on to get us here. And it feels like Benioff and Weiss, the showrunners, it feels like they're just ready to go. We're just ready to move on. We're done. And I know that there's stories out there about, obviously, since like season 4 or 5, they kind of moved on past George R.R. Martin's stories. So they didn't have his framework to work within. So they've just that's where the drop off started happening. Mm-hmm. I personally never had a problem with the series post, 1 through 4 are obviously like they're substantially better than the other 3 seasons in question. But, 5, 6, and 7 were still, I was happy as a viewer. I was very entertained, and it really wasn't until season 8, episode 3. Like, that's where it jumped out to me. How did you feel about the first 2 episodes of this season? They were kind of boring, but it didn't turn me off necessarily. What about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page. I wasn't about to I had a bad feeling about this, to quote one of our favorite franchises. Yeah. But it didn't lead me to believe that it was necessarily going to be a complete sham. Like, I didn't expect it to drop off the way that it did. I was disappointed. I think my biggest disappointment I think I would just have to say the writing and the character motivations, and a lot of just the choices as well. Like you said, with I have no problem with Daenerys becoming the Mad Queen. And in fact, I think that's actually really cool. And foreshadowing, that's great. Foreshadowing's awesome. Foreshadow all you want. Breaking Bad, one of the best shows ever as far as foreshadowing goes. But he doesn't make that leap, as soon as he breaks bad. It's a slow and methodical process, because that's how people work.
Perfect point. Such a good point.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. It's one of the things that I admired about the writing of Game of Thrones, and whether that was Martin himself or whether that was whoever took over, whoever was in the creative position, whoever was doing the job writing, they did a good job of, I think, being true to the source material in the way that George R.R. Martin was very, very, he was very dedicated to creating believable human profiles. So he wouldn't just have somebody be a monotonous character that just made choices based off of a trope or an idea that we have in a fantasy world or any other kind of world. They were complex people who endured their developmental stages like any other human being did, regardless of whether they were living in a world with dragons and White Walkers. These people were still operating under the rules of of developmental psychology and different personality disorders. So you see that really in a lot of different characters, and you see this beautiful mosaic of different complex psychological profiles in each character, and everybody's complex, but nobody makes jumps and leaps in reality that way. And I was actually talking to one of my friends about the character of Daenerys and how I love the Mad Queen idea. I think that's really cool to show how genetically we can be predisposed to having certain negative character traits. But of course, with something like schizophrenia, for example, that doesn't usually exhibit itself in females particularly until their late 20s. So that could be a really cool way to show. But even then, people don't just snap overnight and all of a sudden. It's usually a slow, steady roll. And I get that this is season 8. They only had so many episodes, but they go from her being one version of herself to being something completely different with these murderous homicidal rampages. And even if there's an element of PTSD there and someone snaps and there's a trauma that they're reacting to a trigger, they're not going to go to a murderous rampage when they've never exhibited any signs of that before. And yes, she's burned people before. She's very vengeful. She's very quick to make these unstable things, especially if her advisors aren't there to rein her in. But she has always shown the importance and her prioritization of families, children, and the innocent. So it's just too big of a leap for us to believe as an intelligent, well-informed audience that I think the Game of Thrones showrunners, they invested in us, is they never really made us feel like we were being completely spoken down to. Maybe not so much in the later seasons, but especially in this season, I just feel like it just feels just give them what they want, but it almost feels, that doesn't feel good. It feels like they know that we enjoyed the subversion of the fantasy tropes and the subversion of expectations, but I think they almost took it too far to where they're like, give them what they want, but then we're just going to do it in a really lazy way, and we're going to kill dragons, and we're going to kill characters, but it's going to be kind of lazy and sloppy, and it's not really going to have any emotional impact. Like when Jaime died, he's one of my favorite characters. I almost didn't really feel anything because it didn't even feel like Jaime anymore because of the way he was written.
It's so frustrating too, because Jaime, and that's something we talked about yesterday, Jaime, one of the great arcs in TV history, and completely botched right there. Like they just completely abandoned it. There were so many ways. And I don't have a problem with Jaime returning to Cersei. That was a major part of Jaime's character development. His arc is the fact that he could never really get away from Cersei. Even when he got away from Cersei, we as the audience knew, like deep down, Jaime is hurting right now. He loves Cersei, and nothing is ever going to change that. But he also knew that she was terrible for him. And for him just to turn back into literally the same exact character he was in season 1, episode 1, it just like, no. Like I wanted to see Jaime kill her, or maybe kill her, then kill himself. I don't know, something to that nature. But for him just to go back and grovel to her, and for her to die that way too, for her just to die under rocks. God, it just hurts so bad. And
I think they really felt like they were subverting expectations, because there definitely was an expectation. I mean, at least on my end, I was reading all of the foreshadowing from my angle of, understanding that they were going to be subversive. But I was also like, oh, he's going to go kill her. He's probably going to strangle her. I just had a feeling that was going to be how it went. And no, they subverted my expectations. They subverted our expectations in many ways, but it wasn't satisfying. Not because I didn't need it to be this dramatic moment. If anything, I like that they don't make dramatic moments out of, because that's not how life works. When somebody dies, it isn't necessarily this romantic buildup to it. Sometimes it just happens, and it's scary because it's so undramatic or unemotional. It's just, that's what death is. It's just, it doesn't take any time. It doesn't give any music. It doesn't give any momentous feeling to that happening. It's just an objective end to something, which I think was something that they did really well with it for a while. But that's one of my biggest things is the White Walkers were so cool. The Night King was so cool because this is what we were up against. And it was, on the deepest level, it was a story about life versus death, and the one thing that we can't negotiate. We can negotiate for the crown, we can negotiate for the throne, but we can't negotiate death. Even if there are sorcerers or sorceresses that can bring people back 6 times, 12 times, there's something about death that is final, and you'll never get that core glimmer back. But then it was just so easy to just defeat that, and it kind of took away all of the stakes that I felt had been built up. And obviously that's probably one of the more common complaints, but to me that's just like, really, that's what you're gonna do?
The White Walkers were the first thing we see in
Mhm.
episode 1. They're the first thing we're introduced to, and like that, just gone. And it was so frustrating for me. Yes, you're right. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with subverting expectations as long as you have the proper story elements to justify it. Again, the greatest of all was Luke, I am your father. You know, that's a subversion of expectations, but it was done properly, and it caused the right type of shock value that furthered the story. Like, you abandoned everything. You didn't do any subversion to benefit and make the story greater, enhance it. All of your subversion has abandoned everything you've worked towards. Like,
Right.
Luke, I'm your father. It builds, it's like, oh, this is a game changer. This changes everything now. And it's like, more now. We have created more storylines, more story arcs, more audience. The audience is going to sit there and their minds are going to be blown, and they're going to start thinking about theories, scenarios. How did this happen? Yada, yada, yada. But the Night King dies. You're like, wait, what?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, there's nothing. That's it.
Yeah.
We're done. Like, you haven't built any more storylines out of that. You just ended something. You've abandoned something.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's my biggest problem with it. It's just like, and again, with Jamie, you know, we don't get closure. We didn't get closure with Jamie. We didn't get closure with Cersei. Dany, now again, if we knew that this was going 10 seasons and we're in, you know, season 8 and Dany goes Mad Queen, like, all right, I'm not loving this drastic change, but at least I know that we've got, you know, a long time, you know, to kind of, let's investigate this. Let's dive deeper into the psychology of why she got to this point. Maybe we can get some backstories. Maybe we get a montage of things that we didn't see that kind of pushed her to this point. I don't know, something, you know what I mean? But the fact that we know it's all ending and you've just made this drastic change in a character that we've been tied to for so long, it's subversion of expectations is a bad excuse right now for a lot of these writers. It's all comes down to bad, lazy, incompetent writing and not appreciating the story arcs that you've been building. And it's a complete slap in the face to the audience. It's a complete slap in the face to the audience. So, you know, in closing, I will say, or I want to ask you, so since you don't know the leaks, which is fantastic that you don't know anything, I want to hear your theories for what you think is going to happen in the final episode. I'm sorry to put you on the spot on this. I'm letting the conversation flow how it comes to us, though. But do you have any theories for what you think is going to happen and who's going to sit on the Iron Throne when it's all said and done?
I hate to say it, but I almost haven't even invested any of my time or energy even to like contemplating any theories at this point, because I'm so kind of unimpressed with the writing that I doubt that anything that they do, no matter how shocking or subversive, I don't know that anything that they do is going to pull me back in emotionally the way that I already was. It would be great if they did. Yeah, it would be great if they did. It would be great if somehow they found a way to bring all of the stakes and the emotional weight back. But I feel like they have stripped these characters of any of their actual development that they went through just for the sake of getting us to an ending. I would rather it just kind of end in a brutal way that left us maybe not even feeling closure and have great writing than to have this shoddy, lazy writing that just makes us feel like no matter what they do, no matter how they surprise us, it's still not going to feel like Game of Thrones anymore.
Good answer. That was a good answer, to leave it open-ended for us, to try to not give us closure. That was a good answer. This is why you're going to see more of Kelly here on Geeks and Gamers channel. And yes, Kelly, we are going to see more of you, correct?
Yes, definitely.
Yes, we're gonna see a lot more of Kelly here on Geeks and Gamers. And then I do want to tie the whole element into, how do you think, because we talked about this a little bit, because I know she's very smart because she doesn't spend a lot of time on social media, so she's not into the social media nonsense that a lot of us are buried in right now. Obviously, though, you're aware that Benioff and Weiss, the showrunners from Game of Thrones, are now going to be going on to direct or produce and write the next Star Wars movie, and it's rumored that that's going to be in the Old Republic era. How do you think this fallout from Game of Thrones and this disaster season 8, which at the time we're recording this, and again, I don't do a lot of petitions I think are funny and laughable, but there's a petition to remake Game of Thrones season 8 right now that's up to 600,000 signatures in just a couple of days. 600,000 signatures, and we haven't even gotten to the finale yet. So I think it's going to be over 1 million after the finale. Do you think there's going to be some really kind of long-term effects to what happens with these showrunners and they're working on Star Wars? Do you think that's going to cause the audience to be very, very concerned, and the controversy is going to follow them into that? Do you think that will happen?
It's certainly possible. From a personal standpoint, I don't know if I would write them off immediately, only because if we've seen what they can do with good source material, and I think the world of the Old Republic is really cool, and it has a really raw, dark, very open to interpretation aspect to it, where maybe they could work with some of the characters and some of the ambiance and the moods and the atmospheric stuff that I think they're really good at capturing atmosphere. And if they can put half of the character development into some of the characters that we see from the Old Republic into some of those characters that they did in the original first few seasons of Game of Thrones, I would be very happy with that. And I don't think, just because they've clearly, something's happened, I have a hard time understanding where this is coming from, because without us having any kind of insight into really what's going on in their minds and their creative process, it seems like completely different people took over the writing process from where they were. It's not just because they didn't have Martin's source material anymore. Something tells me that something changed, some type of motivation or dedication kind of switched at some point. So I'm hoping that maybe we can look at a reflection of how they put their creative process into the first few seasons of Game of Thrones, and maybe that will be more reflective of what we would see for future Star Wars movies. I'd love to think that. So I don't really want to weigh in either way, just because it's hard to say. Like, we could get the seasons 1 through 4 version of them, or we could get the season 8 version of them. Not that I necessarily have a problem with seasons 5 through 7. Like you said, I still enjoyed them enough to consider myself a fan of the series, and nothing ever made me feel like, screw it, I'm writing off all of this entirely. There were some moments where I was really questioning, the creative choices, but it never made me just hate. I still was invested in the characters. I was still invested in the story. I still wanted to know what happened. So they still have, they have potential, clearly. They have talent, clearly. It's not that these people have just completely, fallen off the map in terms of their talent. I think until we have insight into what exactly went on, there's really no way to estimate what trajectory they're going to take with their future projects.
Well, see, and this is why I love getting your perspective on things, because this is where I'm like, oh yeah, F them. These guys garbage. They're going to ruin Star Wars. And you always have just such a centered, calm response where you're like, look, I'm obviously unhappy with Game of Thrones season 8. I think this is terrible, yada, yada, yada. And you've criticized them, rightfully so. But then when I bring in the Old Republic aspect, if that's where they're going, you bring up the fact that, look, if they have good source material to work with, they've proven that they can give us some amazing content. So this is why I love getting your perspective on things, because you definitely bring a real calm, centered approach to it, where I'm just throwing haymakers, so I really
well, thank you.
So that's going to wrap us up for the day. Obviously, we've had Kelly here before. Kelly is a major part of Geeks and Gamers. She's a great friend too, and she also has a YouTube channel, but she doesn't post to it a lot. Her YouTube channel is Jedi Bunny, and I will leave a link in the description below. Kelly, you're trying to still find your way into how you want to develop into YouTube and things like that, but you're committed to working with me here on Geeks and Gamers, and I appreciate that. But do you want to say anything about your YouTube channel in terms of what you're potentially thinking about doing? I mean, it's been several months since I think you posted anything, right?
Yeah, I think it's been like 7 months, maybe. It's been a while. I do, and I miss the communication that I had with the people that were commenting and a part of, the dialogue with my videos. Because the coolest thing about having a YouTube channel at all, even being as small as I am, it's so nice to have a community of people where I can kind of have this exchange of ideas. And I started my YouTube channel with a video about The Last Jedi and how heartbroken I was over the outcome of that film and the subversion of expectations that I felt. And it was really cool to have just a flood of support, but also a lot of people's different perspectives. And I started off as someone that kind of really, I know you hate this, but I really judge the prequels very harshly. And I'm still not a prequel fan per se, but I've come to a place where I appreciate and respect why people love them and the story and the meaning behind the actual story that's there. And it's really cool to have that shared experience of being able to hear someone else's perspective, their experience. And I'm always I like the feeling of kind of having an open mind and being able to change my mind depending on whether the facts are there or whether it pulls you in emotionally. So that's the cool thing about my channel, that I really loved creating videos and being in the comments with the people that were writing. But I also definitely I kind of felt like I got a little spooked, a little gun shy about YouTube too, and about creating my own content, because I'm someone I'm an introvert, first of all. So it is hard for me to kind of put myself out there, which is why I love working with you, is because I have someone to have that back and forth with, but also because I'm someone that feels like if I'm not doing something that's authentically like an intrinsic motivation from within for myself, I don't want to do something just to like put content out there. So I struggle with that for sure. So the next video that I post, whenever that is, if it's a year from now, if it's a month from now, if it's a day from now, I want it to be something that I really feel connected to. So
I think you and I have talked about it. I think I'll do what I need to do is do a video with you for your channel. We can record something and whatever you want to do, and I'll kind of just be there. You can feed off of me if you want to do that. I know you want to. 'Cause we talked about that, but at the same time, I would say don't. I've come to know this because I have my personal channel now, my D-Day Cobra channel, and I take things a lot different. I approach it a lot differently over there than I do here on Geeks and Gamers. I don't put intros in front of my videos. I don't edit it, like even to the point of like me looking to the left to stop the recording on my video. Like I don't do anything. I just record it raw and uncut. And sometimes it's stupid stuff. Like last night I was walking into Walmart at 11 o'clock at night. So I decided just to upload a video saying, pray for me. I'm walking to Walmart at 11 p.m. because it's dangerous and scary. And I did a little, thing about it. People loved it, and it's like off the cuff. It's nothing. I would never upload that stuff here to Geeks and Gamers, but on my personal channel, it's like, whatever, man. It's like, it's not there to kind of build a brand or a business. It's kind of there to be myself, whether that's stupid, whether I'm being corny or cheesy, and people seem to love it. So I would say definitely as I've evolved into that channel there, I'll talk to you off air, obviously, but I would encourage you to, if you have anything you want to post, just post it, and don't worry about the critical side of it. That's what
that makes me feel so much better, because I've been so scared of like disappointing people. That's been my biggest fear. People are going to hate this.
Yeah, I would say, and I want you to go over, I'll send you a link to my video from last night, and it's so stupid, but everybody loves it, and again, there's nothing I would upload here to this channel, but yeah, we'll definitely talk. I mean, we'll definitely talk. I'll give you some advice, and I think you'll be a lot more comfortable, because ultimately you're great at this. I truly enjoy having you on, and I'm looking forward to having you on more often. I'm sure the Geeks and Gamers community is very, very excited about it. So
thank you.
You're welcome. So that's going to be it for the day. I hope you guys enjoy this. If you want to see more videos from Kelly and myself, just let us know in the comments below, because she's literally, truly one of my favorite people. I love having her here on the channel. We've hung out before a couple of times out in California. She's the best. The moment we met, we clicked, and it's been a good friendship ever since. And had her on the channel a few times. Everybody seems to love her, and rightfully so. And other than that, for Kelly, I've been Jeremy. Thank you guys for checking out this video. You guys have a great day, and we will talk to you later.
Bye, guys.